1 year ago, I made a video about how Metal Jesus Rocks influences the prices of retro video games. His hidden gem videos did cause a brief bump in price before it settled back down. Because his hidden gem videos made such an impact, it got me to think, how does the angry video game nerd affect retro video game prices? Welcome to another episode of Retronomics, the series that takes a look at the factors affecting video game prices. And this episode has been a long time coming. Right after the Metal Jesus Rocks video, I thought what would be the opposite of Metal Jesus, and I immediately thought of James Rolfe, aka the Angry Video Game Nerd. I mean, if hidden gem videos increase the price, then how would talking about crappy video games affect their prices? The Angry Video Game Nerd started initially as the Angry Nicktendo Nerd, a short-term project in 2004, and then was placed on YouTube in 2007, where it gained massive popularity. But the series hasn't always been on YouTube. Being featured on sites like ScrewAttack.com and game trailers, the series is credited as an inspiration for a ton of YouTubers, myself included, and a couple of knockoffs. Now with 160 episodes and a movie, the Angry Video Game Nerd is a pioneer of retro video game reviews. The most recent Angry Video Game Nerd episodes have been averaging about 2 million views, so exactly how does that affect the price of each game being featured? Well, I took a look at all 168 Angry Video Game Nerd episodes and then measured the change in price. I took a look at the month before, the month during, and the next month after that video was posted. The issue that I did run into is that there are a lot of videos before 2008 that don't have pricing data available, so those games were omitted. And there are also some episodes that focus on accessories or magazines or PC games, so there aren't really too much accurate pricing history for those either. And also, to keep things consistent, I only used the YouTube publishing date. Amazon and ScrewAttack dates were omitted so that I could maintain consistency. Out of 168 episodes, there were 70 games that had accurate pricing data. Out of those 70 games, 38% had a drop in value the month during, 40% the month after, and 41% of the games dropped in value 2 months after airing of the Angry Video Game Nerd episode. On the other hand, 44% of the games saw an increase in value the month during, 45% the month after, and 51% of those games featured in Angry Video Game Nerd increased in value 2 months after the airing of that episode. But only 17% of those Angry Video Game Nerd episodes recorded saw no change in price the month during, 14% the month after, and just 7% of those games had no change 2 months after the initial air date of the episode on YouTube. To get even more specific about the prices that I tracked, I looked at the prices that increased or decreased during certain times. For example, 17 games reviewed by the Angry Video Game Nerd only decreased in price the month during the episode air date, meaning that the price could have increased the month after and dropped 2 months after, or increased both months. There are 5 games that decreased in value only the month after, 3 games dropped 2 months after, and 2 games featured on the Angry Video Game Nerd dropped in value the first 2 months. 13 games saw a decrease in value the month and 2 months after the air date of AVGN episodes. There were 18 games that increased only the month during the air date, 5 increased in the month after, and 5 games 2 months after. 9 games did see values increase the month during and the month after, but 15 games saw an increase the 2 months after being featured on the Angry Video Game Nerd. But there were 7 games that saw a decrease on all 3 dates that I recorded, and only 3 games saw increases all 3 data slots. Only 12 games saw no change in price the month during the episode airing, and 4 games saw no change in price when being featured on the Angry Video Game Nerd at all. I mean 5 if you want to count the Nintendo World Championships, but I don't, because who has 18 grand just sitting around? The average decrease in price the first month of an episode airing was $1.21, with the Berenstain Bears being the most at $14.47. and the average increase in price was $4, with the most being Plumbers Don't Wear Ties gaining $49 in its first month. The month after, however, saw a more decrease in price, averaging $2.59, with Earthbound dropping the most at $22. The increase in price was less at $1.48 on average, with Wayne's World only increasing by $5.91. 2 months after a game featured shows a larger drop in price, but that could be because Plumbers Don't Wear Ties dropped $110 after. But if you take that out, the average is only $1.84 for a loss. Inverse of that, you have games rising on average of $2.07, with Earthbound gaining the most value at $10.08. One thing that really stuck out for me is that Sonic 06 was featured on 4/20/2017 and dropped in price the month during and the month after, but 2 months after the release date of the episode, it only increased $1. But when Part 2 dropped in November of the same year, it increased the first 2 months and dropped $1.49 2 months after that episode aired. This could be because of the timing of the episode and not necessarily because the Angry Video Game Nerd gave it a favorable review, but it did increase $2.62 at its peak, which is almost the amount that it decreased in April. So I guess you could say that Sonic 2006 for the Xbox 360 saw no change in price. Game prices have been affected more significantly in the recent years, mainly due to the retro video game craze. Modern games aren't really covered in the Angry Video Game Nerd universe, but just because a game is featured on a show notoriously for highlighting shitty games from the past that suck ass, it depends on the game, because James Rolfe doesn't always review crappy games. There are some games that are just plain interesting or really difficult to get into, like Seaman for the Sega Genesis. It's an incredibly obscure but notorious game for Sega's last console. The price of this game went up a couple of dollars, and you can rule out Leonard Nimoy's death as a factor, since that was 5 months prior to the release date of this episode. Another weird game is Earthbound for the Super Nintendo, and it was pretty weird to see the Angry Video Game Nerd cover a game so universally praised by the gaming community. This game was $150 before the video launched, and then spiked to $172 during the month the episode aired, and then dropped back down to $149.92, but it rebounded a little 2 months after to $160. Consider also that this was after the Super Nintendo Classic had been out for a year. While the Angry Video Game Nerd Earthbound episode aired on YouTube towards the end of April, it launched 2 weeks prior on Amazon Prime, which could explain the bump in price the month of instead of the month after. The games that Angry Video Game Nerd sees as clearly garbage do not see as much of a price increase, but they do increase slightly. The Angry Video Game Nerd reviews are fair and do point out things that are fun or rather interesting, like Earthbound and Seaman, but games like Superman for the Nintendo 64 see no jump in price. Even when James did a follow-up episode just recently to complete the game, the sales of Superman for the Nintendo 64 didn't increase significantly compared to the month prior. One game that I have to touch on is E.T. the Extraterrestrial for the Atari 2600, widely considered the worst game of all time by a lot of people, including the Angry Video Game Nerd. When James Rolfe did an episode on the fabled game, the price decreased the month during the episode air date by 1 penny. Then, the month after the episode, it increased in price by $2.74 and then dropped right back down 2 months after the Angry Video Game Nerd episode aired. When the Angry Video Game Nerd movie came out in July, it affected the price in a similar way. It was $6.50 in June, then dropped to $2.99, then increased back to $6.50. Since the price data is from 2014, it could be a couple of misreported data that caused that drop to go down and then come right back up to normal. Compare that to the complete in-box version of E.T. when the legend of them being dumped in a landfill was proven to be true in April of 2014. The price went from $2.99 to $30, and then it slowly went back down, but hasn't gone back to that price before the landfill find. The loose price had an increase in well, but not to the extremes like the complete in-box version, and it's probably because there are so many copies of the game made that they had to throw them in a landfill. Most of these games reviewed by James Rolfe have increased in price, but not in a significant amount compared to those games featured in Metal Jesus Rock's Hidden Gem videos. The recent episodes have seen prices rise by a couple of dollars at most. Home Alone, which had Macaulay Culkin as a guest star, only increased by a couple of dollars and then slowly slid back down in price. But Charlie's Angels and that Star Wars fighting game rose $2. One game that dropped significantly in value was Michael Jackson's Moonwalker for the Sega Genesis. The price was $49 the month prior to the episode airing, $49 during the month that the episode aired, and then it dropped to $43 the month after, and then to $30 2 months after that episode had aired. And it's hard to say that the Angry Video Game Nerd episode on Moonwalker nuked the price during that time, but given that the rest of the AVGN episodes affect the prices, I think it was a fluke. Overall, the prices of the games featured in Angry Video Game Nerd episodes are affected for the month that they are in. It is pretty interesting to see how many games actually go down in value, even if it's just a couple of dollars. But if you do see a game that you like featured on AVGN, I don't think that you'll have to worry about the price swinging significantly one way or another. It really just depends on the game. Now, Mike and James Monday on the other hand, well, let's just say it's an episode for another time. And that wraps it up for this episode of Retronomics. If you have an idea for a series topic, let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, give it a like. And if you're new here, I have a whole bunch of past Retronomic episodes for you to enjoy. From how Metal Jesus Rocks affects retro video game prices, all the way to why the Nintendo 64 is so easy to collect for. And I also have more Retronomic episodes on the way, so if you're interested in this type of content, consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Super Nicktendo, and I'll see you next time.